get things started.
Squared away.
Squirt.
Oh no, dude! And the rubber band just broke for our folks at home not watching. Yes.
That's just fine. This is what they call historic texture.
Yeah. Welcome to the rest of your life.
Let me do a quick sound check. I'm just gonna see what the levels are on it with a pin here. 2, 2, 2. All right, good. We've got adequate bandwidth on that.
Sounded.
Well, welcome to the CapmLew podcast. I'm your host, CapmLew, along with co-captain Luke.
Here I am.
There he is. And we have had an interesting last couple of weeks here on the podcast. We're definitely starting to get a sense for what it is to sit down and pace out, putting thoughts to not only paper, but out into the airwaves, into your ears. And we like it.
Yes.
We feel good about the things that we're getting a chance to discuss, even if there lies ahead the possibility that we may have to admit we changed our minds or we were wrong about something.
Yes.
That's entirely possible.
Right.
There are many ways to be wrong, and one of them that is very constant is that we are wrong by not having the complete set of words that would perfectly encapsulate something we're talking about. So,
Yep.
Someone would come and say, like, "Oh yeah, what about this?"
With that tone.
And I'd say, "Oh, actually, that's a good point. It sure would have been good if I had thought about that.
Dang it.
But you know what? I hadn't.
Yeah.
And even worse, Luke didn't.
Yes.
You're supposed to keep that from happening,
Yeah.
Luke.
How could you?
How could you let me make a mistake like that?
I was asleep at the wheel.
That takes too long to say, so I always just say when someone comes at me sideways, I say the same thing.
You mad, bro?
It's Luke's fault.
It's simple, it's elegant, it's perfect. Yeah, it's teamwork, baby.
That's a Luke problem.
Yeah. You're gonna have to talk to my PR guy. There's no I am team, but there's Luke in team.
So that makes me happy that we at least get to admit openly from the start of an episode that we don't just get it wrong, we get it partial. And that doesn't mean that we don't believe the things we say. It doesn't mean that we aren't convinced of the positions that we may or may not, be taking and expressing. It means that these kind of comms are it's like a journey.
Yeah, it's like an incomplete. There's incompleteness inherent to verbal communication.
We're drinking coffee out of teacups today. What am I doing? Gotta have the pinky out.
And we matched.
This podcast is brought to you by Carhartt coveralls.
Oh, bro, finally something I can get behind.
I bet. You know what? I bet that this thing has been messing with the quality.
I was gonna ask that, but I didn't want to bother you. I should have bothered you. Is it off?
It should be off, and that didn't stop.
I'm solid green.
I'm solid green here too.
Gosh, all systems
so
go.
Maybe it wasn't messing with us. But if a buzz just exited the sound quality, that is because we disarmed a Bluetoothian. I'm gonna
disarmed a Bluetoothian.
I'm gonna see if I do that, what happened.
Oh, I love it.
Why won't? Yeah. Well, it looks like we're starting to fire on all 8 cylinders here. Terrific. Hey, look, we're on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, aren't we slave to your phone right now?
I thought we were. I'm going to just knock, because the way that the iPad goes through the iPhone.
Yeah, it's through the way.
Bluetooth.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And that possibly could cause a buzz.
Well, and here's the question too. We're on Wi-Fi on your phone, so does it just slave to whatever network your phone's on?
The phone isn't supposed to be on Wi-Fi.
Well,
it's supposed to be on network right now.
Okay.
But the phone so far can be trusted that when the Wi-Fi goes out, because of 12-year-old router,
yes,
when the Wi-Fi goes out, and we can't just buy a new router because we're getting a new service, the faster whatever they always promise.
Yes.
When that comes through, then it is at that point that we will seize the opportunity to get a good router.
Yes.
Right now we have what's known as a good enough router. It is good enough.
Good enough.
The podcast exists.
It does.
It does, and it didn't used to.
Well, it does now.
And that's a big achievement.
It is.
That's actually a big deal.
But for the guy who has to piece together these Facebook Lives and mend them together, it's so much more helpful when they're one piece.
Yeah, I appreciate that guy.
What's that guy? What's the guy's name in that podcast? They always Kyle.
Kyle.
For Kyle, it's just easier for Kyle when they were one piece.
Kyle. So Kyle is like Jamie.
Yeah.
You know, on Joe Rogan's podcast,
Yes.
he has Jamie.
Yes.
I bet that boy is busy.
Yes.
I can't imagine all the... Well, you know what? I bet that Jamie and his team, he probably has a team, I bet they've got a full suite of subscribe services that they use that they just power through.
And I bet they have a system in place wherein they just watch the system.
I love that.
Which is sick.
I mean, obviously, they're the ones who are editing together, but I bet they've got the full suite of services over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just super legit.
The pained look on your face.
These are the salad days.
It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Cue any snowboarding video ever made.
Well, I'm the guy who likes riding bikes with no windshields.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing. We're riding a bike with no windshields. And you know what? You're tired. You're getting the crap beat out of you the whole way.
Yeah.
It's a fact. And anyone who says, you need to get yourself a bagger. Well, I did that. I got a bagger so that Judy and I could ride together. And that's terrific. And I like it. It's a good bike. I spent a good amount of time riding on that bagger because it's so different to my other bikes. I really wanted to learn how to ride it. And having ridden both, the bagger is so much more easy to ride.
Bro. So
I would not mind if we did get a nice studio set up and we had those things. That would be terrific.
Oh yeah,
I love riding. Sick. I love riding my bagger.
Yeah.
With its big old batwing fairing and its, but I still fire up the rabbit ear Radder, and I love riding that thing. I do.
Yeah.
I got to get into that thing so a motor sometime in the next year or so here, and just make sure everything's tippity top since I bought it as a garage sitter.
Yeah.
I don't know what sort of cam tensioning system it's got on there. I think it's got the old
belt driven
cracky leather cam tensioner boot.
Yeah.
Spring loaded boot system on it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure with the low miles it has that they're not going to blow right away, but no, I'm not.
But I'm also not, though.
Because it's an early 2000s Harley Davidson twin cam. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Those things, they do that.
It's nice that your bagger experience is somehow, in some ways, legitimized by your previous Sportster Radder experience in some ways. You know, you can get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I don't consider it a superior thing culturally to ride a motorcycle that's more difficult to ride.
I'd actually, can we talk about this for a minute? Because the same idea is pushed forward in skateboarding, and I think in a lot of subcultures. And I find some legitimacy to the claim.
Well, we're going to discuss we're going to actually today we're going to use some scenarios to discuss some human dynamics, and you're right there.
Yeah.
So let's form this up.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was actually wanting to. What I'm hearing you begin to talk about is here we have a thing, motorcycle riding.
Yeah.
It causes enthusiasm.
Yes.
And some people devote themselves to that enthusiasm.
Yeah.
To varying degrees.
Yes.
Which are evidenced in varying ways.
Yes.
The black t-shirt with maybe an event, a Sturgis, maybe some eagles.
Yes, some flames.
A wolf howling at the moon.
Right.
And some words to the, or a charity ride or something like that. And a pair of blue jeans, a chain wallet. All this is me. This is me.
Right.
You know, blue jeans, a chain wallet, a fixed blade knife in a sheath.
Yeah.
Perhaps some collection of various firearms.
Yeah.
Sure. Big heavy boots, t-shirt, like that. Maybe a leather vest.
Why not? They're badass.
I love them.
Yeah.
I love them, and I do wear them. And I now own 3 because there was a sale.
There was
a 70% off sale.
I would have lost money if I didn't.
I own one that is road worn and wearied and like that.
Yeah.
And then I own 2 that are brand new Harley Davidson brand. The one I
Yes.
owned, the previous is a Milwaukee brand.
Okay.
And the third one is like a double XL or a triple XL,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes over my leather jacket,
Yes.
which goes over my flannel shirt, which goes over my hoodie,
Yes.
which always has 2 holes cut in it, so it goes around my thumbs,
So you can pull through. Yes.
which goes over my black t-shirt
Yes.
with some assemblage of wolves, dragons,
Yes.
eagles,
Right.
American flags, and
Yes.
an event commemoration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
My favorite shirt along the line of devotion to the enthusiasm is a back graphic
Mm-hmm.
that my son bought me for my birthday.
Yeah.
It says, "Is my bike too loud?" It has a giant skeletal middle finger, like the full back middle finger fist. And I love that shirt.
Yeah.
I love that shirt, even though that shirt makes me a bad person.
Yeah, dude. It's nice to know that it's totally ridiculous and to like it anyway. That's just a nice feeling, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's a freedom that comes in admitting that I'm wrong,
Yeah.
and admitting that I need work.
Yeah.
That I'm, so this enthusiasm elicits from us a certain degree of devotion. And then among the community of the devoted,
Right.
now some people are excessively devoted. Excessive devotion is no longer about the experience. There's some threshold at which you go from being devoted to something to being obsessed.
Right.
And I think it's the point where it turns inward.
Yeah.
And the thing becomes all about you.
Sure.
Okay. And I don't think a person has, I don't know how to handle the difference between devotion and obsession in several fields in my life, but I see this where someone wants to be so real
Mm-hmm.
that they become, in achieving this state of legitimacy, they become artificial themselves.
Yeah.
As a person. Their entire person becomes artificial
Right.
because they've crafted themselves on an image,
Right.
usually for the purpose of measuring other people. It's very judgy.
No, it is. Yeah.
So
I've always held, I know I've said it to you before and maybe out on the Faceland world, I've always said the frenzied search for authenticity is in itself inauthentic. You know, if that's your entire driving force is to be real, then you end up really not being very real at all.
it's a bit of an Ouroboros.
Ouroboros.
Do you know what that is?
I have no idea.
That's the snake that eats its own tail.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit of an Ouroboros.
Ah.
And the Ouroborosnicity
There it is.
with which we approach these things, we should be on our guard, because I don't know if you know this, but a snake that eats its own tail is double dead. It is devoured,
Yes.
and it is strangled, asphyxiated.
Yes.
It is both being consumed and choked to death by nothing but its own self-obsession.
Damn, son. Cue the dropping of sunglasses and the joint.
Double G.
Yeah, dude, the Snoop Dogg music. Yeah, dude. Yes, dude.
No,
I
that's
love it.
just the second cup of coffee talking.
That's fine. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm a dork.
Go ahead.
So bikes without
Yeah.
windshields versus bikes with windshields.
Right. Right. Or yeah.
Now we can talk about that.
Yeah. I think that there's a conflation, what's when you conflate two ideas? A conflation between
That's my guy.
two words. Yeah. Call me Moses.
Just dig it out.
Yeah.
Dig it out.
Dig it out, bro. Between two ideas. And I think if I had to describe them, I would say that on one side you have respect, and on the other side you have legitimacy, and the two are different, and people conflate them. So when a person is so committed to something like skateboarding or motorcycling, there is a respect that that person can garner by doing things that are tremendously difficult.
Okay.
But the legitimacy, this is all objective based on my opinion, but the legitimacy isn't married with the difficulty of the thing that they're doing. So like a kid, go ahead.
Real quick, it's not illegitimate to pursue legitimacy.
No.
But it is not legitimate when your definitions of legitimacy are rubric. So let's talk about respect and legitimacy.
Sure.
I think here's the thing. It's nice to be respected, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
But it's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed, though, is it?
No.
Okay. So let's say there's a person who is respectable, like objectively. They carry in their person the ways of someone that is respectable.
Sure.
Will they be respected?
Sure.
And no.
Sometimes. Well, if you talk about within the matrix of what is respectable, what is gnarly in skateboarding, or what's gnarly in motorcycling.
But they can't control whether someone respects them.
No, but because we're working inside the matrix of skateboarding and motorcycling, because the culture is pushing a certain narrative.
Okay.
Yeah, you can work it out like an equation. If you do these things, then you're going to probably, most likely, 90% sure garner respect from the peers who do that thing based on the things that they think are cool or uncool.
Let's talk about it a little more. I'm not pushing back.
No.
I want to explore this a little bit because I have a theory.
Yeah. Here's mine broken down. Let me break it down. Let me break it all down. Okay, if you have a person and they are able to do really hard skateboarding tricks, they skate every day, they wear all the skateboarding shoes, their entire aesthetic is total skateboarder, they usually garner respect from the skateboarding community.
Yeah, they do.
However, if you next to that person you have a person who maybe doesn't wear all the right clothes and doesn't skateboard as much, they're going to garner less respect. The thing is, both people in my mind are legitimate skateboarders.
Oh, okay. Well, I hear you.
Now, the problem with the matrix, the range of respect is that I have it in my brain. So on the very left side of that range, you have a person who doesn't do any of the things, that skateboarders would call gnarly or cool, so they don't have very much respect. And then you push farther in, and now you have respect. And then you push too far, and from my perspective, you move away from that respect because you become an arugula. You become an arugula. You're like a vegetable.
A delicious garden
salad.
herb.
Yeah, a delicious herb.
The arugula sprouts are delicious. They're not as bitter.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. That's very convoluted. There's a lot going on there, but I think that's the idea that we're talking about. And I don't mind a hierarchy of respect. What I don't like is that a person would look at another person and say, "You're not legit."
Let's try to craft a hierarchy of respect.
Okay.
Can we try?
Yeah, let's do it together, because maybe I'm wrong. The more I talk, the more I feel nervous.
I think that the wrongness that you're feeling is the wrongness of incompleteness.
Yes, I agree.
This is one of the problems with spoken media.
Yeah.
Is that the error of incompleteness is always hovering about. And so in these passion pursuits, these enthusiastic pursuits that we experience as human beings, we often establish hierarchies of respect.
Sure.
Now, what's often lost is a form of respect that is universal to human beings.
Sure.
This isn't just lost in the passion pursuits. This is lost as a matter of just selfish interest in the world. It goes out of our mind that the person who is driving badly in traffic with us, I'm talking about me, right?
Yeah.
It is easy to overlook, forget, put out of my mind that they are a human being.
Yeah.
And if I knew what kind of life they were living and day they were having and like that, I might have a different view of their behavior in traffic today. As upsetting as it is that they behave so often in what I can only describe as a savage disregard for safety for other people.
Yeah, right.
Now you're like, geez, Lou, that's a lot of words. Well, it takes a lot of thinking to get to work in the morning and have your soul intact.
True.
You got to have your boots on out here in the world. Otherwise, you're going to be screaming and cursing and losing respect. Now, my sense of respect personally is rooted in that the Son of Man died for them like he died for me.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm a guy, now not everyone in our listening audience is on that tip.
Sure.
All right? And that's fine. I mean, we can talk about those things as they come up, but because I would love to have a big, long gospel talk and Bible study.
Yeah.
But today we came here to talk about hierarchies of human respect.
Sure.
All right. So, well, another problem I face is not only the war within myself to remember human dignity in everyone around me, but also I am buffeted by the apparent reality that other folks have lost that war. They have forgotten my human dignity.
Yes, 100%.
I am buffeted, but we are buffeted by this on all sides all the time.
Right.
Not always. There are some places, times, areas, people where these things are more common and less common. But so the universal human respect and dignity that belong even to criminals,
Sure.
even to people we see as misbehaving, they need to stay fixed in place.
Yeah.
It's very, very important, and it's a tenuous grasp.
Yes.
It really is hard because
Yeah.
you can find me in a rush hour morning. Did you see that?
Yeah, dude, bro. And it is so gnarly out there right now. I don't know if anybody's doing it.
Has anyone noticed the traffic?
Dude, the amount of Tik-Tok that's happening at 65 miles an hour on the highway is nuts.
Yeah, and especially as a motorcyclist, riding motorcycles, you really, it's emotional. So, all right, let's now look into, but then you find something in your life, something that you do, in which you can be respected for, you can enjoy. Membership is about establishing an area of that respect.
Yeah.
Having a place in a community means that you are afforded that sense of legitimacy and respect as a member of that thing.
Right.
And this is a universal human appetite.
Right.
And I almost think it's a nutritional need. It's not just an appetite, but it's a need. We have a need for family.
Yeah.
And as adults, that need for family becomes a bond of community.
Yeah.
So we form these communities around skateboarding or around motorcycling. And that's not wrong, and that's not in and of itself per se deficient or wrong. There's certain things that can't do.
Yeah.
That's not going to get you through the gates of heaven.
No.
And it's not going to heal you from your cancer, but it's not illegitimate in and of itself that you have gravitated in your life into human communities.
Yeah.
Of shared interest and shared values within those interests.
Yeah.
But when human values come into conflict with those community things,
right,
sometimes you have to experience conflict with those communities. There are limitations to how much you can enjoy going to your ski lodge when it's all cocaine and booze after you've hit the slopes,
Yeah.
and you realize that in the larger sense of humanity, you need to clean you need to clean up your act.
Clean your room.
And clean your room.
Yeah.
So you can see how these are supposed to be subordinate community involvements, right?
Yeah.
Skateboarding isn't supposed to be your whole life. And I think we've got listeners who would contend with passion. They'd be willing to fight that skateboarding is my life. Without skateboarding, I'm utterly lost.
Yeah.
And I would
Probably true.
I would not contend viciously against them.
Sure.
I think that it might be the case that skateboarding is their organizing principle, their organizing community. It's up to them to evaluate whether it is sufficient for a human person to use skateboarding as a full organizing community, organizing principle.
Right.
If skateboarding even contains enough to begin to do that, I would hypothesize. I would posit
Right.
the idea in argument that, yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And that's why it's fun.
Yeah.
Skateboarding is fun because it's not all that.
Sure.
If you find a way to make money in skateboarding and you get to do stuff with it, I mean, huzzah. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except that it's not.
Yeah.
Ask the people who are making their living in skateboarding, and they'll tell you, ooh, it's a bit of a grind.
Yeah.
Every dime will lose its shine one day.
Yes.
And it's a grind, because life is a grind. We need larger organizing principles in our life than and look at who's telling you that skateboarding is their life.
You're about to hammer down on a hot take right now.
Hot take. I don't take life advice from Andy Roy.
How dare you?
I don't take life advice
Yeah.
from Jeff Grosso.
No.
I appreciate them
Yeah.
with an immense amount of affection.
Yeah.
I enjoy so much. I enjoy the perspectives on skateboarding that they bring. I don't know if you remember this, Luke, but Andy Roy, he hit me right in the sweet spot when he did his kids camp.
Oh yeah.
It was so good. It was
I
so
do remember
good.
that too.
I was like,
yeah.
This guy shouldn't be around kids, but this media
Yes.
this is so funny.
Yes, dude.
And
yes.
I thought, what an awesome idea that
Yeah.
a guy with as rough a background as this
Yes.
might. I couldn't help but wonder whether I was watching YouTube videos
Yeah.
of a guy who was connecting with innocence.
Yeah.
That's what I thought I was seeing.
Yeah.
And that's why I have such an affection for that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But no, I do not agree. I do not get on the hell ride.
Yeah.
I am not ride or die skateboarder material. It's just true. And that loses me respect in a hierarchy.
Right.
That does. And I am very content to lose that respect.
Right.
It does not worry me that I am truly lesser than
Yeah.
in the hierarchy of skateboarding because of these ideas.
Yeah.
Because my goal in life has to do with a larger hierarchy.
Yeah.
So hierarchies.
Yeah. I have
Yeah.
I've got 3 super quick narratives in my mind that are helping me talk about this. And they're in the realm of motorcycling, which I find to be easier for some reason than skateboarding. So if you have 3 scenarios quickly, one of them is a guy who went to the dealership and he bought a $35,000 bagger and he keeps it in his garage, and maybe he rides a lot. my gosh, dude, bro.
You don't.
I was like, I don't think I do, dude.
We have these little notes.
Yes, dude. Yes, no, dude, you gotta hammer it down. You gotta show the folks at home.
We have these little notes, and he wrote himself a note.
Yes.
It says, "Slow down. Take your time, bud." Was that to you or to me?
It was to me.
I knew it. He
Yeah.
wrote us a note to him because we were, and
Yes.
he wrote himself a little note so
Yes.
he could organize his thoughts. And
Yes.
I thought, oh, Luke is trying to organize his thoughts.
Yes.
We're gonna fix that. So I wrote, "You have a huge booger." I slid that over
right
to him.
in the middle.
I wanted to see him be like,
no. I'm like, anyway. That's so funny.
Sorry,
dude.
Luke.
No, it's good.
So,
okay.
yeah, hierarchy.
Yeah. One. So 3 narratives. You got one guy. He goes to the Harley Davidson store. He buys a $35,000 bagger. He keeps it in his garage. He doesn't do any of his own work.
Okay.
He gets out on the bike and he loves riding.
Okay.
He loves it and he does it. Maybe he does it just on the weekends. Maybe he does it all the time. So there's one guy.
Is he LARPing? Is he in full? Is he
Well,
wearing
we're gonna
the
get
stuff?
to that.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
we're gonna get to that. Second narrative. Here's a guy. He bought his first Sportster. He did some work on it. He is really getting into it. Maybe he gets a second bike. Maybe it's a Dyna. He's doing his own work. Maybe he, anything from the range of changing his own oil to breaking the entire bike down and putting it all back together. Okay, that's the second guy. Third guy is a guy who hates anybody on a bagger, who always has a motorcycle cut on, who's always wearing all the gear, who is going to talk shit to anybody who he finds to be illegitimate. So those 3 dealios.
There are more.
There are more, but those are the 3 that I have in mind right now. Now,
So you've profiled 3 types of people.
yes. So the first guy, I don't mind anybody that's in those 3 realms. I mind the last one the most because that's a person who I think has driven it too far and is now taking his place in the community as the high priest. You know what I mean? He's the one who gets to determine what's right and wrong. I don't like that very much at all. What I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about these 3 narratives is, if no matter where you are in that structure, I don't mind as long as you're being honest about where you are inside of that structure. You know what I mean? If you want to be a guy who just rides on the weekends, that's fine, dog. I got your back. You are legitimate to me.
Right.
However, if you want to be that guy, but you have on all the gear and you play act as a person who's really gnarly, who does real road time, that bothers me because, not because, you're not riding that much. It bothers me because you're not telling the truth.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Guy in the second category, if he's play acting as a super gnarly dude, that bothers me because you're not telling the truth. Third guy bothers me just inherently. So maybe it's really only 2 categories. You got the beginner and you got the guy who's really doing it. And inside the second category, there's a metric inside of there.
Well, let's establish a hierarchical continuum.
Go ahead.
What do you say we go from beginner to expert?
Yeah.
All right. So just in terms of motorcycling or skateboarding,
Yeah.
I think this applies probably to skiing, snowboarding. I mean, shoot, roller
anything,
skating on
right.
quad skates. So you've got the beginners, the initiates.
Yeah.
Right. And these are low influence to high influence positions. And they're also low respect to high respect.
Right.
Right. And it sounds like it rubs you the wrong way when somebody gets uppity and wants to experience more respect than their place on the hierarchy merits.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
So let's look at beginners. You laid out 2 types of beginner. One is the consumer beginner.
Yeah.
It's just my brain.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So one's the consumer beginner who just purchases everything.
Right.
And now he's a member of the motorcycling community.
Right.
Because you can tell they're a member of the community because they're on a motorcycle every weekend or like that. And the other one is the low budget DIY guy, gal, who bought a crusty old Sportster, and it runs well enough now, but they still have to break off an exhaust stud that's behind it. Yeah, the
Bro,
bottom front
don't,
exhaust
dude,
stud still has to
don't.
break off,
Bro,
and
dude.
and they have to discover how to do all this stuff.
I'm shuddering.
You know?
Go ahead.
So you've got a hierarchy of practice.
Yeah.
And you've got beginner to expert.
Yeah.
And I figure that in the middle there you might have something like, you might be like initiate, novice.
Yes.
You know, but like from beginner to expert, you have a hierarchy.
Right.
This is not wrong.
No.
This is not bad.
No.
I feel like the uppity anarchist might resent that this exists, but this is the way of it. This is the way of all things.
Right.
And it's not bad. And there is a certain respect that is afforded to the beginner.
Yeah.
And I think that the beginners often experience, maybe some might say, hazing.
Sure.
Hazing is a part of a process of initiation.
Yeah.
But they may also experience there's a difference between an expert and an elitist.
Yes.
So elitism has to do with influence. And you can be a beginner and be an elitist.
Yeah.
Because elitism has to do with enforcing a value system that's based on, that is always more meritorious to be further along on the scale.
Right.
That only experts have value in the community.
Exactly.
And therefore only experts are to be respected.
Right.
The respect that the non-expert gets
Yeah.
has to do with their allegiance and their alignment
Yes.
with a system that exalts the expert.
Yes.
That's elitism.
Yes.
And it exists actually oftentimes more militantly in the minds of the novices
It is.
than it does. You'll find the novices are often the enforcers.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. And the true experts may enjoy the fruits of an elitist culture.
Yeah.
But they don't tend to come down off their throne and do much about it.
Yeah, right.
They tend to leave that to the novice class to handle for them. And the novice class that are elitist in disposition, they're more than happy. Because by enforcing elitism, the novice class get to experience connection to the expert class.
Yeah.
So here we have a continuum of hierarchy that goes from beginner to expert. But this elitism is not that, it's not this continuum. The continuum is kind of objective.
Yeah. And it's legit.
And it's kind of time-based.
Sure.
So, when I'm riding motorcycles, like if I go out to a swap meet, like I really love, I love motorcycle culture. It's a human culture, so there's a lot all the time that you could, you can pick on anything.
Right.
You can pick on anything. I pick on skateboarding.
Yeah.
I say, well, that's deficient for forming a worldview.
Right.
That sort of thing,
yes,
right?
Dude.
And I'm a clown. It's fine. I don't, but in this, you might have people in so okay.
Yeah.
Legitimacy is it's like a common pursuit. Like we want to be real. I think that what I'm wondering, what do we mean when we talk about being legitimate? What are we talking about? What is legitimacy? Because if I cannot achieve legitimacy as I am today,
right,
if I have to become a different person, for example, it is not illegitimate for me to go ahead and say, I'm a skateboarder.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
I ride them. I like them.
Yeah.
But someone might say, but it would not be legitimate for me to say that I'm a good skateboarder or that I'm an expert skateboarder.
Sure.
On the continuum. I am not an expert skateboarder.
Right. If the continuum is based on skill alone.
I think that skill is
It's a huge part of it, but yeah.
Skill on a skateboard
Yeah.
is evidence that you have put in effort over time.
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Right.
And this is how
Right.
skiing and snowboarding and
Right.
so when you go out on the slopes,
Right.
you can't talk. You know, if you're doing it,
Yeah.
you're not talking about it.
Yeah.
You're not talking about it, you're being about it.
Yeah.
And if I go out on the slopes,
Yeah.
I may have been going to the mountain for 35 years.
Yeah.
But I'm perfectly happy just kind of doodling down the medium level trails, right? What are they, blue boxes?
Yeah, blues. Yeah,
right.
these are some nice blues.
Right.
It's like skill over time divided by age because the fact that you're older and been doing it for 35 years,
Okay.
when you see a person like that, even if their skill level is lower, to me, they garner respect based on time put in.
You have to watch out for us old guys.
Yeah.
Because a guy like me, you look at me and you're like, wow, you know, I bet he used to be good. I wasn't.
I mean, you weren't bad. You were
Yeah,
probably
but
in the top 60%.
I was not bad during a time when the best were as good as you see in Useless Wooden Toy by New Deal. Okay? That was the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Shove-its and slappies.
Yeah.
Big enough ollies, nose bonks, you know, that era. This was like Guy Mariano had just happened and skateboarding was about to go small wheels, high tech.
Yeah.
And I never achieved expertise in the new wave of tech skateboarding that was coming.
Yeah.
But someone might look at me and think, well, maybe he used to be really good, and that's why he only sucks as much as he does now.
Right.
It's just not true.
Right.
I might go out to a motorcycle event, and someone might look at me and think, oh, you know, there's a grizzled old guy. He's obviously been around for decades and decades, and I'm a Johnny come lately in motorcycling.
Right.
And my appearance is, I try to be very quick to be honest and tell people I'm a novice. I'm really, I love riding motorcycles, and I ride them.
Sure.
But I am not like the same animal as the guy who's been rebuilding shovel heads for 45 years, you know, whose daddy brought him up on motorcycles.
Sure, right.
And to the extent that I might appear to be one of those guys in a grizzled old, beat up old leather cut, you know, and, you know, beat up tall bar bike and look like that.
Right.
And as much as I may, to some extent, embody some of that ethic and miles on the road and going, you know, riding to Texas on a, with no, you know, big tall bars and no windshield and you know, bugs all over me and riding behind a cattle truck, getting drenched in piss, you know, and loving every minute of it.
Yeah.
Like, and sleeping next to my bike and doing all sorts of stuff like that. I don't attain to that legitimacy. So when it comes to older guys like me, it's nice that you younger people would say, but some guys have known history of being absolute rippers.
Yeah.
And they are diminished by age. And I would encourage everyone to gently accept and wisely acquiesce to the diminishments of age within reason.
Sure.
It's good for us to push ourselves and to try to even keep growing and learning as we age, which could be a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah, I know.
All right, I just wanted to say, so discipline over time yields results, but it doesn't only yield results in expertise.
Yeah.
Some people are not gifted with the same degrees of coordination and strength that other people are, like genetically.
Right.
So there are people who don't attain to the levels of evident skill,
right,
but they have perspective.
Yep.
These often are those wonderful, blessed creatures, the nerds of skateboarding.
Yes.
Who know and appreciate so much about skateboarding. So these guys are the the singing bards and prophets of skateboarding.
Yeah.
That remind us who we are and,
Right,
and
they're
what
the
we're
filmers
about.
and the right.
Yeah.
You just love it.
They're
Yeah,
awesome.
right. Yeah, they're sick.
They are. I mean, there are, and this is all in this lower level, this smaller thing.
Right.
There's life, and there's the larger picture of what it is to be human, and you got skateboarding. It's a part of it.
Right.
And within skateboarding, you zoom in, you can see you've got a legitimate. But this idea of legitimacy, I think, has to do more with occupying your place honestly.
Yeah.
And I think that transgressions in this regard
Right.
can be avoided with some humility.
Yeah, I as you were talking, I was doing a little bit of thinking. So inside of this continuum we're talking about, if you have a continuum based on time, effort, skill, and passion, to me, from my perspective, no matter where you're no matter where you're at on that continuum, you're legit because you're here and you're doing the best that you can, honestly. And to me, there's only...
And at what
Go
point
ahead.
does a person become illegitimate?
There's two ways that I can think of. One is placing yourself on the spectrum above your current place.
Above where you actually are.
Above where you actually are. You could use the term poser. I hate that word because
No.
it's been taken, but it is a good word.
Getting uppity, being
Yeah,
arrogant,
right.
being proud,
And
being
these are
being self-entitled.
Exactly. Usually those are the enforcer types. And the second way that I can see becoming illegitimate is supporting elitism, which in this metric that we're talking about is basing the continuum only on skill level. So
Interesting. We did historically, skateboarding has fallen for that quite badly.
yes,
We took some of the very most skilled people and we exalted them into, we didn't know.
Well-
okay, look, man, we didn't know.
yeah,
But we took some of the high skill people
yeah,
and we put them in places of such influence in industry and community.
right.
And, mushrooms grew in the dark, man. Most mushrooms are poisonous.
Yeah, don't eat them.
And of the ones that are not poisonous, several of those will rob you of your good judgment and your sound mind.
Yes.
All right? So,
Right. And you can see, like, if we use this metric, I actually really like it because it's a good tool. If we use it, you can see why Jake Phelps, which is really sad, you can see why people like Jake Phelps were pushed to their breaking point because they base their continuum solely on skill or passion that played out in committing to everything all the time and getting really hurt. And as they aged and lost their ability, if I'm seeing it correctly from their perspective, they were moving down the continuum. They had enjoyed top of the line 1%er status for so long, and then they, based on their own judgment about what made a real skateboarder, they were moving back down the line, and it crushes a person who's based their entire life on whether or not they're skating or not, or being a real skateboarder, which is really sad because if his continuum had been based on time, effort, skill, and passion, he'd been on the continuum and he would have garnered absolute legitimacy in my mind. You know what I mean?
I would ask, okay, there's a lot there.
Yeah,
there's a lot
that's a
there
big
to
deal.
unpack.
Yeah.
And I think if we back up from it, here's the thing. It's hard to talk about Jake. We've talked about Jake a lot, and it's very sad.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is hard to talk about Jake is because he had some things tragically wrong.
Yeah.
He wasn't right.
Yeah.
He was wrong about some things. It's an opinion podcast.
Yeah.
We are sharing with you that we think that he had some things wrong. You may feel like sharing with us that you feel like we have some things wrong. That's fine.
It's fine.
It really is, because we all have some things wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why we speak.
Yeah.
That's why we connect and we speak with one another, so that we can discover, maybe through saying something wrong,
Right.
we can find something right, or so that we can refine what we have right
Right.
and make it even more, refined and sharp, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, which means they got to bang, they got to clash.
Right.
And so this started with, here's the thing. I'm part of a Facebook group that is actually a pretty wonderful community. It's the best Facebook can be.
Yeah.
It's a Facebook group that has become a wonderful and quite a warm community of skateboarding enthusiasts who span a very broad range of skill level.
Right.
But they are all devotees of skateboarding.
Sure.
They are true enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Membership in that group is, I'm going to say words.
Go ahead.
It's predicated upon.
Yes.
All right. It depends upon not their skill level,
Yeah.
but their enthusiasm for skateboarding. So that group has a very open gathering format.
Yeah.
You know, like the hierarchy exists. I mean, the people in that group who just are rippers.
Yeah.
They come to the gathering every year and they shred.
Yeah.
And then I go and I push around and I do one of my 4 tricks that I can do.
Yeah.
But it's hugs, it's how have you been, it's just lovely. And that group has one rule. They express one rule.
Yeah.
Now, that's obviously not a super high level of organization, but the rule is, and if I may, I'm going to use a curse word.
Oh no. Don't be a dick.
It's don't be a dick.
Oh, good.
That's their rule.
I love it.
You guessed it.
Right.
Their rule is don't be a dick. And of course, that's a very low-level organization,
Yeah.
which I appreciate. I like to
Yeah.
keep it simple. And of course, there are plenty of people along the way, because it's been going on for years, who haven't been able to keep that rule. And
Yeah.
treat other people well is their rule. I would take it from the negative to the positive. Treat other people well. Bill and Ted, be excellent to one another.
Yeah. Sure.
Right? So that's an enjoyable group that I can give. I could say I endorse that group, but I'm not sure that I could vouch for other people to join it.
Sure.
If I have someone join the group and then they behave, some of the things that people do in a group like that is someone will come in the group and they'll start messaging other people's ladies.
Oh, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Right?
Why?
Am I right?
Yeah. Like,
And
stop.
they get the boot
Yeah.
right away.
Sure.
Other people will come in that group and they will use the group as a way to financially take advantage of other people by non-delivery on arrangements.
Right.
You know? And well, what's really interesting is that group is they have, since they're so enthusiastic about skateboarding, they love skateboards.
Yeah.
They collect them. So there's a lot of swapping and a lot of trading and a lot of buy-sell going on in that group. And when something gets jammed up and people complain to the leadership of the group, they really dig in and they're like, let's see if we can sort it out. They really put in work to try to sort things out.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's not perfectly the case.
Sure.
And people quit the group because they feel inspected, or they quit the group because they maybe even get mistreated. You know, nothing's perfect. But there's a group that I'm part of that is actually quite excellent. Now, my own involvement in that group is highly restrained because I'm a public person. I don't want to capitalize on that group. You know, and I also want to be very careful that I don't make a mistake and wreck something. So if I'm going to do something, I say yes. My yes has to be yes, and my no has to be no. And I'm very careful. I don't want to say, oh yes, I'm going to join the Christmas time getting, swap trade activity that's really a high commitment. And the box you send better be good when my own finances can't really do it to the way that I would want to do it.
Sure.
And also, I'm not sure there's not going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
I've got people in my life who are sick, and if they get a bad week that jams me up, so I don't do that stuff because I have things in my life that make me unable to participate with integrity.
Yeah.
So I keep my integrity by not committing.
Yep.
And that's okay. I'm saying that, like, lots of skateboarders have become adults without growing up.
Yeah.
We came up in a little tiny piece of life that we've made the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's not a great arrangement.
Yeah.
It is good for us to turn our eyes. So let's go back to two kinds of motorcycling, windshields and non-windshields. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one thing that I'm really enjoying about this conversation, because I've had it internally, is that it actually has allowed me to enjoy skateboarding tremendously more. And let me explain why. I used to watch a person like Nyjah Houston rip, and I would feel this discomfort inside of me when I watched it. And I've been trying to articulate why. It's because I was trying to place him inside of my own personal continuum of skateboarding. So I'm trying to figure out how much respect should I have for this thing. And there's so many different aspects in there. But this is cool because now, like, I really enjoyed watching Nyjah's, the last 2 video parts he put out, because in my opinion, objectively, it was some of the gnarliest trick-oriented skateboarding that's like ever happened in skateboarding. The fact he didn't win Skater of the Year is an absolute atrocity. Like, it's completely insane. And the reason I was able to enjoy it is because I could look at Nyjah and I could gauge the amount of effort and time that he put in, and then I could subtract the elitism that is obviously inherent with behavior sets that I see, and I could place him on my personal continuum. And because I had him placed in a place that felt comfortable to me, I could just sit back and enjoy it for what it was. I didn't have to do a whole bunch of mental gymnastics trying to figure out, well, should I support this by liking it? Should I not support this by not liking it? Where am I at? It's actually really, it feels like a weight's lifted off my shoulders, because I can just I can consume the media, and I can take out of it what I like, and I can leave what I don't like. You know, you can have both. I can have my cake and eat it too. Is that what they say?
I like that. You actually can have your cake, Andy, and you could. It's called having 2 slices.
Yeah, it's 2 slice cake.
So
it's really helpful.
So when I watch, let's take that. It's a great example.
Yeah.
Take Nyjah Houston. So Nyjah is a man like me. None of us are better than each other.
Sure.
Okay. God loves every one of us, and that doesn't make me better than someone else.
Right.
So I'm watching Nyjah Houston skate, and there have been times, I think you might be describing this, where I feel like I'm being asked to approve of Nyjah's parties.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being asked to approve of, Nyjah's life choices and things like that.
Right.
And then I go, well, who's asking me to approve of those things?
Right.
And we picked Nyjah Houston because he's very public. He's very, very front facing, and he's a big boy, and he can certainly handle us discussing it.
Yeah, 100%.
Certainly can.
Yeah, he'll just bury us in money. It's fine.
I'm happy that he's made money.
Yeah.
I do. I wish everyone had everything.
Yeah.
I'm not an anti-materialist. I wish good things for everyone. I wish all the warmth of hearth and home.
Yeah.
To each one of you.
Yeah.
And I don't presently in this time of my life feel that way. So I don't feel like I have to kick against what I'm watching when I'm watching someone who is excellent at skateboarding, though I am at times haunted by, I know so much about this person. Because I say the partying is bad for you. It wastes your life. Drunkenness and casual drug use and promiscuity will waste your life.
Yeah.
They lead to a wasted life. I've said it 3 times. I think it's enough, but I just really mean it.
No, I agree.
And that's a conviction that I hold as a man in this sojourn.
Yeah.
So when I watch something where Nyjah is skating, I hope for him that he's grown and has grown in wisdom, and it isn't, because I don't know this guy, man.
Yeah.
I only know what they tell me about him, and that's not reliable. So I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
I know some things about him. Like something about having his music loud and having very little consideration for his neighbors by some report, which that could be sensationalized. I don't really know what happened there,
right. Right.
But it fits, Lamborghinis, whatever, Ferraris, and all that stuff, and all those princes from Dubai racing on the Grand Concourse in Brooklyn when I was riding into New York City really show me It's life and death stuff, this partying stuff. And I have friends who died partying, like that. And it's hard,
totally.
as a grown-up. But when I watch him skate, can I separate the baggage of my larger worldview from the ephemeral passing value of this skateboarding?
Yeah.
Well, truth be told, it's hard.
It is.
I have to do, I think, something like what you're doing. I have to make a separation, and I have to put up a veil and go, forget thinking that I know anything about this guy.
Right.
Just how impressive is it to me that he can perform the daring do?
Right.
And the fact about me is it's not terribly impressive to me.
Sure.
Remember, guys, my sense of what's important in skateboarding is a feeling that I get when I ride one of the useless wooden toys.
Yeah.
And my personal framework for what makes skateboarding so great is that it's not important.
Yeah.
And one reason.
Go ahead, dude. I love
Thanks,
it.
dude. One reason that is that way, is because my life is filled with real life and death issues, and real traumas and real dramas that I'm taking a break from, and real labor and real grind and real adult having to do's that actually preclude me being a good skateboarder.
Yeah.
I can't be a good skateboarder because my time is occupied with other concerns and other things. Also, I'm probably lazy. And if I would get my Jocko Willink and my David Goggins going a little bit, then I would be the oldest man to win X Games gold.
Yes, dude.
No.
Do the 900, Lou.
I just don't have the ambition.
Yeah.
I want to be a grandfather who is known by his grandkids and who shares. I'd rather wrench on a bike with my little grandkid, and I'd rather be there.
Yeah.
And in order to be there, I have to be there.
Yeah.
And I can't be out chasing the glory. So I also tend to gravitate toward people in skateboarding like a Dan Corrigan.
Yeah.
Who, there's a persona that I feel I can trust.
Yeah.
That I don't have to do so much labor to enjoy.
Right.
It can be really hard for me to watch skateboarders when I know true stories behind the scenes that have gone on, and seeing this person means that but I pull it off. I do. I pull it off because good is good.
Yeah. And
I do enjoy watching good skateboarding, but I'm not interested in getting a pinch on a crooked grind.
Sure.
And flipping out, back foot flip, whoa, nollie flip, whoa. I'm not interested in that. And you'll see, as I share my life publicly, to some extent, you'll see those are where my dials are set, and it makes me a bit crotchety.
Yeah.
But in terms of the hierarchy of involvement in a subset community of humanity, I sometimes ask questions like, all right, well, if I were ill, how important would this be?
Yeah.
What if I weren't able to do this any longer, what would be left of me?
Sure.
And then I think about that.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, well then maybe I should make investments in my life in those things which can't be taken away by a tragic accident.
Right.
Things like relationships.
Yeah.
Things like knowledge. Things like wisdom.
Yeah.
And those thoughts, even when I was young, I pursued those things. And so now, I'm older, and and I have good friends.
Yeah.
And thought we should do a podcast that kind of does that.
Yeah.
And slows things down and gets them out here. But I do want to talk about legitimacy and illegitimacy.
Well, one thing...
They're real.
Yeah, they are. One thing that I'm thinking about as we're talking about this, so I've had this experience in skateboarding. It's been very interesting. So in the beginning, I went skating with you all the time, almost every day for like the first year. And then I was hanging out with all of our crew, and I was gratefully inoculated with the idea that your skill on the skateboard does not denote worth as a human being.
In life.
In life.
Life writ large.
Yes, exactly. And then, so I had that inside of me, which was really helpful because it really freed me up from feeling like, oh man, if you can't do the trick, then you're not a real skateboarder, and then your life doesn't mean anything, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I held that line really hard because I could see that it was destroying people's lives, and that was really tearing people up. And then when I was living in Colorado, I lived with a bunch of dudes who are my very, very close friends. And it was funny because their dials were set a little bit differently. They were more interested in the skill-based skateboarding, and
the pecking order.
Yeah, well, they were in awe by cool tricks, and they loved watching the skate videos. And it was fun because as I began to be around them more, I would dabble into this realm. Like, I would go skateboarding. I never battled tricks ever. Before that, ever. It was like I just didn't do it. If it wasn't fun, if I couldn't do it, then I wouldn't do it. And I would learn by just trying stuff when it felt right. But when I skate with them then and now, it's actually really fun for me because I'll go and they know what my skill level is, and they'll challenge me to do things that are just above my skill level. And I'll sit and try it for like half an hour, and I love it. I have such a good time because I'm with them, and I'm more goal oriented in my life, so I'm interested in the progression of tricks. And it's a lot of fun, especially because my identity isn't stuck in it, and I don't feel like if I don't do this, then I'm illegit. I just feel like, man, it's fun to try new stuff that I'm not very good at to see if I can build that skill level up. And it really helped round out my perception of skateboarding because I could see that there was value in trying tricks just above your skill level on purpose to see if you could do them. And it was a lot of fun. But I have a lot of respect for people who say, that's not my deal, man. I just do what's fun for me currently. And if I have an inkling to try something new, I might try it, but that's not really where my dials are set. Because that's where my baseline is there. Yeah. But I can dabble in the other side as well and have a lot of fun doing it because my dials are set, and the fact that this doesn't represent the whole of who I am by any means, not even close. It's actually, skateboarding is even more fun to me now because of that, because I can implement it in my own life even when I'm not with them. I can go to the skate park and say, oh, I want to try this. I might try this for a couple tries just to see if it's fun. You know, like, it's fun to have a challenge. It's fun to see if you can do something that you can't do. And I think it's unwise, and I think that we should be careful to look at people who can't do tricks and think that they're illegitimate, and to look at people who are spending a lot of time trying tricks and do the same thing and think that they're illegitimate. The problem is that a lot of times within the culture, watching somebody do a bunch of tricks, throw themselves down a set of stairs, represents a continuum based only on skill. And that sucks because I feel like they're having something stolen from them. You know, their bandwidth is so narrow that they're not actually getting to enjoy the fact that, hey man, even if you didn't do this, you're still in the group. You know what I mean? Even if you didn't do this, you're still
in the group.
Yes.
You remember that joke? I make that joke with kids, right? Yeah. You're in the group.
Yeah.
You're in the group. You're in the group. You're in the group.
Right.
You know what you guys are? You're in the group.
Right.
When that joke comes across the way I intend it, they start to shred.
Yeah. Because you feel free.
They get stoked.
Yeah, you're free.
I was like, hey, you showed up. Look at you. You showed up.
Yes.
You're here.
Yes.
You're giving it what you got. You might not have as much as you wish you had, but you will have more if you just give it what you got, you know, and like that. So it's very psychological. It's actually, crazy. You know what? I keep thinking while we're talking about this, I keep thinking of folks whose initiation actually ground into them a different set of values. Yeah. And first, I'd like to tell you that if you don't share these values, if this is, you know, this can be foreign to people.
Right.
This can even be offensive. This can actually feel like it devalues what they've been really like taught to value.
Yeah.
And it does. Like,
Yeah.
that's a thing. Like,
Right.
we definitely don't value those things.
No.
And we are pushing a case that, yeah, no, nope. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter in the way that
Yeah.
it's mattering.
Right.
And I think about a listener who might be listening as saying, these are just a couple of kooks trying to make up for the fact that they can't perform,
Yeah.
they haven't done the work,
Yeah,
and
right.
therefore that. And honestly, I got nothing but soft white underbelly for you. Go ahead, have at it. The argument that I'm just a kook who, and that somehow these ideas don't matter because I haven't achieved the superficial and passing state of daring do. You can't
Yeah.
keep it, guys.
Yeah.
That proves my point.
Yeah.
That's an argument that proves my point. The sad thing about that situation is that you're trapped.
Yeah.
You're trapped in it, and your speech is a defensive behavior.
Yep.
That you're exhibiting toward ideas,
Yep.
thoughts,
Yep.
that are challenging the value of your own ideas and thoughts.
Yeah.
This is part of human experience, and what I want to tell you, just breathe. You're gonna make it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're gonna end up agreeing with me,
Sure.
and I don't need you to agree with me in order for me to have affection for you
Right.
and to have a sense of greater overarching human value for you.
Right.
For me, you'll have this. That's because the Son of Man died on the cross for you like he died on the cross for me.
Yep.
And that makes us in some way brothers
Sure.
in humanity.
Sure.
Not in terms of ultimate destination that's necessarily, but in terms of being co-human in this bar fight
Yeah.
that's going on.
Right.
And this is us having your back.
Yeah.
This is us fighting against what's fighting against you, which in this case is you. And I know. And so, if it feels a bit tense for you, if this elicits in you feelings of anger and like that,
Yeah.
let's just point out that again proves the point that skateboarding has gotten a little bit too large for you.
Yeah.
Skateboarding shouldn't be what causes us to want to harm another person or even silence them.
Yeah.
People are going to be dumb, and if you feel I'm dumb, that shouldn't be something that knocks the cheese off your cracker.
Yeah.
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 So if you exhibit fragility
Yeah.
in your heart and your mind as you listen to these ideas, then you're fragile.
Yeah.
You got brittleness.
Yeah.
That's good. That you could put that on the table and you could go with that.
Right.
And you can grow from there.
Yeah.
And I'm almost certain that a whole bunch of things I say on this silly podcast are going to be silly things.
Right.
And I try not to say things I'm going to regret later, but it's inevitable.
Oh, come on, man.
Inevitable.
Right.
So why evident?
Why even evident?
Why
bro?
even evident?
Gosh, dude. It's inevitable.
Well, let's bring this back.
Yeah, let's bring it back.
I want
around.
to talk about the guy like me,
Mm-hmm.
who I didn't ride baggers, right? I always bought crustier, older bikes that I liked them ratty. I liked them low to the ground. Not choppers. I didn't necessarily do a whole lot of things. I mean, I made some campfire sissy bars out of rebar.
Yeah.
And I've changed wheel bearings and done brakes, and I've with help I've extracted several transmissions and put them back in. With help, I've done successful top end rebuilds. I've done things alone. I've done pretty much everything on the primary side of a bike alone. But I'm not someone to look up to or admire or anything like that. I don't have a lot of legitimacy. But when I got around to what I might call the bagger class.
Yeah.
These are moneyed men.
Yeah.
Some while back, not too long ago, I was among what I call the bagger class. These are older gentlemen who have been able to make a life and earn enough money to buy the $25,000, the $18,000 bagger,
Right.
For which I couldn't even afford the payment. I don't handle a lot of money, something that may change, and I'm not opposed to it.
Sure.
But I think it's really dangerous to look down on the rich, because you can become them very quickly, and you have to be prepared, or it'll ruin you when it happens.
Right.
And so I was not a chopper guy. I hadn't personally engraved every part of my bike. I hadn't had my bikes down to every bolt and rebuilt them from the bottom up. I'd done wiring and I've done a bunch of stuff, but I'm not a bike builder.
Right.
You could never hang that name on me. And I'm not I'm not special. I'm not.
Right.
I'm a guy who buys old Softails and old Sportsters and gets them ride ready.
Yeah.
And I do ridiculous things to make them ride ready. And then I go out riding, and people look at them and go, "Oh, that's awesome!" I had a guy. I was riding an old Dyna. Not that even that old. It was like a 2012 Dyna.
Yeah.
I was riding the Dyna, and he says, "Is that a shovel head?" And that's because I put slammer shocks on the back
dude.
and rewired it around with an exposed wiring
Yes.
around to the back because the wheel hit the fender.
Yes.
That was I'm a clown.
Right.
And this old guy, a biker's biker. I pulled up and got out to get some food and drink, and I was road weary, covered with grime. On my way home from Texas, I was in St. Louis, and this old guy with real miles and real, he was legitimate.
Yeah.
And he said, "Is that a shovel head?" I said, "Oh no, I'm masquerading.
Yeah.
That's a 2013
Yes.
Dyna. That's a 96-inch twin cam."
Yeah.
And he said, "I like that."
That's sick.
And I said, "Thank you. I'm thinking about taking it down to a points ignition, carbureting, getting rid of this whole EFI system, getting rid of all that." And he liked that, and I liked him, and it was warm. And we had a time of sharing turns out we both had mutual faith in God. And
That's sick.
he'd been in accidents. He was telling me about accidents and things that had happened, and how the Almighty had looked after him and seen him through, and he knew he wasn't going to go until it was his time.
Yes.
And when I'm on my way back from Texas and I've only got one day left to travel and nowhere left to skate on the way home, and I've been out about 2 weeks, and had a great time. You have those conversations. Okay, now let's talk about legitimacy and illegitimacy.
Yeah.
I love those. And I think that we need to address where things go haywire.
Yeah.
When I got around the bagger class as being this kind of motorcyclist,
Yeah.
I noticed that, like, they would say, you need to get yourself a bagger. And something didn't happen that I think usually happens.
Sure.
Usually the guy who's riding grimy bikes like mine, this sort of like lowbrow guy, would usually turn to the bagger class and would say to him, like, I got a motorcycle so I didn't have to drive a Honda Odyssey.
Right.
With an infotainment system.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm trying to get away from all that. I'm trying, you basically are riding in a car on those things.
They're so nice.
That was not where I went with that. Consistently, my response was, I can't afford it.
Yeah,
I can't afford it.
Yeah.
Like there's no way. I mean, it would probably be nice, but I won't even. One guy was like, "Take my bike around the block, take it for a test ride," and I said to him, and he did prevail upon me to try his bike, which was a really nice bike.
Yes.
I told him, I said, "I can't take responsibility for your bike. It's so expensive. I just don't want to throw a leg over it."
Yeah.
My response was, "I can't afford it, and I try not to want things that I can't have."
Sure.
I'm trying to stay small. But where I didn't go was, you guys are you guys with your giant bikes, and you
Yeah.
got the kitchen sink and all this stuff,
bunch
and
of
all
posers.
that, and
Right.
because I recognize that like 2/3 of that defensive attitude is elitism,
Yeah.
and I've learned in my life that's in me,
Yeah.
and I have to root that out.
Right.
It's in me. There's plenty of it in me. It will come up again and again. You guys are all going to be able to point at me and go,
Yeah.
look at you. You said we're not supposed to be elitist, and you're doing it. And
Yeah.
I'm going to say, of course I am.
Right.
I'm just one of us down here.
Yeah.
The words we're saying are pretty true,
Yes.
even though we struggle to live them out. But funny thing happened after spending a while around the bagger class. I started to really want to take my wife on rides with me.
Yeah.
My bikes just aren't. My wife's not a biker chick.
Yeah.
You know, she's an amazing woman who deserves to feel good when she rides on the motorcycle with me. I don't want riding with me to be something she dreads.
Yeah.
You know, and so I began, with the help of my friends, to look for a bagger. And through prayer and thinking about it,
Yeah.
wound up being able to find a bagger because someone was willing to help me out. And now I have a bagger. And it's funny because the bagger friends of mine came at me as if I had always been an elitist. I hadn't been one, but they came at me and they're like, you got a bagger now you know.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. Yeah,
and
like, guys.
I just laughed about it. I
Yeah.
didn't feel any need to explain it, but
Yeah.
no, I knew that baggers are nice.
Yeah.
And they are. They're much easier to ride. It is true. But them being easier to ride doesn't make me look down on people who are riding them.
Yeah.
So now I have a bagger, but it didn't change anything about where I fall on the continuum.
Right.
I'm still a novice.
Yeah. It's probably untrue.
I don't know, dude. I just don't consider myself to be the novice. Is like, to me,
Yeah.
the way I understand things in skateboarding
Yeah.
and in motorcycling. I could tear down a bike completely, and I could put a bike back together,
Right.
but I haven't.
Have you not?
No.
You put one together. I watched you do it.
And no, you watched me put on a top end, or you
No.
watched me change over from a magnetic Morelli
I
to...
watched you build a motor with help, but I did watch you do that.
It's.
I don't want to argue about it. Yeah,
you got to
I
be
mean,
grateful for friends who would
Yeah.
argue that you're at the high elite levels.
No, I'm
That's
not even
a lovely
arguing that.
thing,
I'm
dude.
not even arguing that.
I just want to say thank
it's,
you.
Yeah, well, I
Thanks,
just think
dude.
it's unfair to
terribly nice thing to
categorize yourself as a novice.
I just
That's
think-
just isn't true.
I think you are a good friend, and I am grateful for your kind words.
Yes, of
You know,
course.
we're approaching the end of our podcast, and last time
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have to put a pin in this. We'll be
back.
waves on the beach, friends.
Yeah.
We'll come back to things. Our job is to provoke thought, not to encapsulate arguments. Consider questions answered.
Yeah, come on now.
We're not here to finish something and declare a,
Right. It's done now.
dude, bro.
Yeah, I know.
That is not us.
I know.
So, here we are at 83 and a half minutes of a 90-minute podcast. The last one we went over by like 1.5 minutes or
We had
something.
to cut it down.
We had to cut it down
Dude, and
and ended abruptly.
it was almost bad. I almost misread the instructions and deleted the entire thing. Such a bummer.
And that was tough because we were banking. I think that
Yeah.
episode might be banked.
It may be.
That might be episode 38, which
yes.
comes out on the 9th.
Yes.
Because we banked next week's episode. We're taking a week off.
Yes.
Which might mean that we may dabble in some solo dolo
Yes.
from the road. I might have Lou from the road moments with you. I don't know, but we still don't know how to podcast separately.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do it separate. I want
Yeah.
the podcast to be us.
Yeah. I like it.
But we want to thank Life Skateboards for the wood that we ride under our feet.
Yeah.
We want to acknowledge that Life Skateboards is putting out some of the best work in laminate in the whole world.
Gosh.
Let's get this guy up here.
You little.
He's so nice.
You little.
We'd like to thank. I'd like to thank my friends in that Facebook group. You know who you are.
Yes.
I think if you're listening, you might know WLSC, who I was talking about. we'd like to express our love and affection to the folks who work at Thrasher Mag.
Yep.
We know that our words cannot have been easy to hear, and we recognize that it's been intense over here, and we also would like. What else would we like to say?
We like to let people know if you. Oh, we want to thank the people who support us on Patreon or on our patronage
Through Podbean. Podbean. And we'd like to ask them to. We'd like to ask more of you to do so.
Oh yeah, right. We got to do that. Yeah.
Yep.
Please do that. That would help us tremendously.
We did it.
And we would want to remind you that we're on all streaming services, including YouTube. Though there is a sometimes larger than I would like break between when we do the streams and when it gets up on YouTube, just because of time constraints and things in life.
But around mid-February, the gap will close. So we live stream on Facebook.
Yes.
That's how we get a video copy of our podcast.
Yeah.
We post the audio through our attractive and well-managed lavalier mics on Podbean.
Yes.
Then it goes to Apple and Spotify.
Right.
And then we take the Facebook Live. Luke rips it.
Yes.
And then he uploads it to YouTube in sequence.
Right.
So he's actually still going through the backlog of them. And they're rough because if Facebook cuts out 2 times, we'll have 3 videos that he has to mash together.
Yeah, I mashed them together, so there might be a weird break in the middle of them. But there is sometimes a break, like the ones I got caught up, and then I'm probably 2 weeks behind right now to get it all up, just because of life. So there'll be a little break between the Facebook Lives and the YouTube's going up.
But mid-February or March, it'll go audio. We'll do Facebook Live with audio. Audio will hit that night.
Yeah.
So it'll be ready for you.
Yeah.
And then YouTube will go up sometime, probably within 2 days of each one of these.
Yeah.
And we tend to cast on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Until the end of time.
Yep. And every now and then we'll have we're going to start having, when we're driving to a skate park or somewhere like that, we may actually start to snag a cast and talk about what we experience on the way there, what we experience on the way home, because we love talking about skateboarding.
Yes.
We think there are a lot of life lessons in there.
100%. 100%.
And, of course, Huck style.
Dog, please, dude.
Hey, we want sponsors.
Gosh, yeah.
We do. We'd like to get our money from sponsorships. Although with our ideological content, I'm not sure anyone wants to touch us. We'll see. Who's brave enough? Life Skateboards is.
If there was one company that I wanted to be sponsored by, it would be Carhartt. I think I have hoodie
We're both wearing Carhartt.
Yeah, dude.
Thermal
I
overalls.
love Carhartt stuff. That would be so sick.
They couldn't touch us. Not
I know, but I just wish
we're too counterculture.
That would be so sick, dude.
It's true. And, we don't mind.
It's fine.
We don't mind. It is fine.
But Carhartt, you make a great product.
Check out Dan Corrigan. You'll see what I like, and you'll lose respect for me. Dan himself would not shrink away from the critique that his videography is terrible. But the fact that Dan Corrigan exists, I respect that.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
For what it's worth.
For what it's worth, CapmLew.
Yes.
Put this dog down. Hit the stop. We're gonna stop you, Podbean.
Laters.
See ya. And Facebook, you're still with us for a few seconds more. Not that we don't really expect anyone to catch it. Every now and then somebody hangs in there.
Yeah.
And we don't even aspire to being watched live.
Fandom.
Aspire to fandom.
Gosh.
Gracious me. Gracious. Well, all right, friends. Then we're going to go ahead and let you go. And we will catch you on the flip side for what it's worth. CapmLew.
Laters.